All right, welcome everybody. We're going to call to order the Grand Forks City Council meeting for Monday, December 18th, 2023. Roll call, please, Maureen.
Weigel.
Here.
Osowski. Weber.
Here.
Lenski. Here. Kavami.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
And Veen. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item 1.3, Mayor's announcements. Just a couple of announcements today. I want to thank Slumberland and all the volunteers that were out helping out with the homes for the holidays, and a particular thank you to the Grand Forks Fire Department. They received the Joan Cowger Award, which is given out it should be given them a number of times for volunteering and donating their time. I think we had 8 or 9 of them that were out there helping deliver those mattresses. So, Chief, if you could pass it along to your team, just tell them thank you. I know they made a lot of kids and some adults happy that didn't have the best mattresses or mattresses at all. So it was a pretty rewarding and a fun thing to get to do. Last week they had the ribbon cutting of the Olivan Hotel. Pretty exciting to have a first-class, world-class hotel here in Grand Forks. Definitely a great place to be able to take the wife or a family comes into town, or even the business travelers, which is probably the main reason for the hotel, but pretty phenomenal. Glad to see that's had gotten finished. I want to thank the Lions. I was out there and got to be sitting in the booth for Christmas in the park. They've got some really great light shows. So if you get a chance out there, it's worth the $10. It goes to a good cause. Go through Christmas in the park there out at Lincoln Park. And then I know I'd mentioned this to you earlier, Chief, but you did a great job with the awards ceremony. Probably about 130, 140 people there. Our PD officers did a great job throughout this year, and I was glad to see them get some recognition for that. And glad to see all those kids. A lot of them had their families out there. There must have been 40 kids out there, and not a single one of them was crying. They're all pretty well behaved, so that was good to see too. And the last thing I want to say, this is our last meeting of the year, so I really just wanted to take a moment to not only thank the council for a tough year, a hard-working year, but one that the work got done. And I want to thank city staff too, because the mundane, sort of everyday work that gets done behind the scenes in a very dutiful way. You got to do the small things and the easy things well, and if you can do those well, then when the big things come up, you're ready to do those. And I think looking at city staff across the board, we operated very well and did the little things right. So I thank you for that and hope you have a good time, good holiday. Merry Christmas and a good New Year's with your family. So that's all I got for announcements. Move on to item 2, awards, presentations, appointments, and proclamations.
2.1 APC Project Syringe Service Program.
Mr. Dulitz.
I'm Michael Dulitz. I'm the Opioid Response Project Coordinator at Grand Forks Public Health. I'm here today in response to a request for a presentation about the services that we provide through the APC Project Syringe Service Program, specifically the supplies that we provide. Just as a content advisory, I've talked many times about our program, but I haven't gone into a lot of detail about the equipment we provide and things like that. And there was some caution at the same time about how we expose this program to youth and things like that. So I just want to reiterate that this is in response to a request, and it is for educational discussion, and so it may not be suitable for younger audiences. We don't intend to promote injection drug use, and this is just part of our harm reduction practices that we have implemented in accordance with state law. So the APC Project Syringe Service Program has been in existence since 2019, so a little over 4 years since we started the program. Our goals have remained the same. Our first goal is to reduce the incidence of HIV and hepatitis C through injection drug use. Our second goal is to reduce the morbidity and mortality from opioid overdose in the community. And our third goal is to provide connections and resources to promote positive health behaviors, reduce substance use, and promote recovery. What this looks like can be a little bit complicated, a little bit muddy. It's easy to look at substance use, abstaining from substance use, and recovery as being your three major endpoints, when what we're trying to work on with this program is a lot of little steps to get to that those same points. So it may not look as clean and that we can get things done as easily, but progress is still happening. Our program is co-located at Spectra Health right now. Since the program started, we've served 264 people. Over the past 24 months, we've been averaging about 29 active clients per month and about 42 visits per month. Most of the people we serve are housed. Methamphetamine is the most common substance of injection use in the Grand Forks community by far that we've seen through our program. And opioids are a relative distant second at 36% of our clients reporting opioids as a substance of use. About 14% of our population either reports having hepatitis C or has been identified as having hepatitis C through testing that we provide on site. And I have additional statistics at the end in the appendix. Looking at the supplies that we provide through our program, I broke it down into the different stages where someone might use the supplies. So for mixing supplies, the first goal is to make sure that we have a cleaner method for an individual to mix substances in to reduce the chances of bacteria or additional viruses or anything like that getting into a substance. So we provide sterile cookers, clean bottle cap blanks, which serve as as something where you can mix your substances, as well as sterile water. Of course, there's going to be potential that there's bacteria or other substances in your substance, but this reduces the additional contamination that can happen with your substances as they're being used. For filtration, we provide various options for individuals filtering before use. The most common is cotton pellets. As well as we also offer syringe tip type filters and wheel filters. The syringe tip type filters, those reduce any type of particles that may get brought into the solution and can reduce bacteria. One of the big kind of peripheral costs with injection drug use is if somebody gets a major infection like an endocarditis, that's an infection of the heart. Treating endocarditis involves a very long hospital stay, involves long-term antibiotics and things like that, which it's very expensive to treat. And so being able to treat even being able to prevent even one case of endocarditis, pretty much would equate out to our budget for the year.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So I guess I don't understand what they're filtering. Like, they're getting illegal drugs off the street, and then what are they filtering out?
Councilmember Ozowski, they would be filtering out any large particles.
So if they don't break it up properly or heat it up enough, then...
Yeah, or if there's another type of particle or something in in whatever substance they had. You don't want to be injecting your large particles. You don't want to be injecting anything, of course. But if you inject large particles, you run the risk of those getting stuck in a smaller blood vessel and causing like a stroke or something like that. So you want to have at least some level of filtration with your substances.
Thank you.
Moving on to injection supplies. Supplies we provide for prior to injection. We provide tourniquets to individuals. The easier that they can access, if they choose to inject, the easier that they can access the vein, the less damage will happen to it. And the less likely they are to miss and have blood loss and things like that could potentially end up getting mixed with somebody else's blood or as a transmission source for hepatitis C. Likewise, alcohol prep pads to clean a site before use. Syringes, we provide a couple different types of syringes. Most are insulin-style syringes, so they're 1 milliliter or half milliliter syringes with very small needles on them. And we provide a variety of different options based off of preference, as well as we provide syringes for intramuscular use. So for individuals who are, say, using illicitly procured steroids or something like that, they may also have a need for syringes, and that's where, they could seek out our services. Syringe control, we provide key rings to individuals. If people are missing often, that creates an opportunity for them to have blood loss that could potentially create an opportunity for exposure.
Could you go back? What are the key rings used for?
So you can see down in the corner of the second picture, down on the bottom, the key ring will go on the end of a syringe and provide better control to an individual. Any opportunity to avoid a miss and avoid having blood loss is helpful at giving one less opportunity for hepatitis C to spread. Disposal supplies, everybody who comes into our program gets a syringe service gets a Sharps container. So we have pocket size, quart size, and gallon size. When funding allows, we also will provide needle clippers if there's any situation where we may not, where an individual may have difficulty coming back to us. They can still bring them back to us, but then they can have those needles clipped, and that gives us one less opportunity for syringe litter. Wound supplies. So this would be anything to put on a wound to lessen lessen the effects of use. So hand warmers, if a person misses, putting heat on can help dissipate the or increase blood flow to the area and help dissipate the swelling. Band-aids, sterile gauze pads, bacitracin ointment to help prevent infection. Overdose prevention supplies, these fall into a couple different categories. Fentanyl test strips and xylazine test strips, those test substances for the presence of either fentanyl or xylazine, and they come as a little kit with a testing vial, scoops, and a water pipette. So if you follow the instructions correctly, then you don't get false positives or false negatives. And then naloxone, you've heard me talk about naloxone many times. We provide both nasal and intramuscular naloxone as well. Over the past year, we've given just under 1,000 doses of naloxone out, so that's about 500 kits, and we've had 88 reported overdose reversals. Alternatives to injection, we try and stimulate conversations about avoiding injection drug use is one of the riskiest ways to use drugs. We of course don't want people to use drugs, but anything that we can do to decrease risk is especially opportunities for disease spread is going to be helpful. So we provide scoop straws, mouthpieces for pipes, and then needleless syringes. Other prevention, hand hygiene is important and helpful, so we provide hand sanitizer, and then sexually transmitted infection, preventing that is also important and fits within the scope of our work, so we provide condoms, dental dams, and lubricant. Education on a person's first visit. Inside the bag that we provide to an individual on the first visit, it includes a variety of different resources, including recovery resources, safer use, and disease prevention. Anybody on their first visit automatically gets those. Follow-up visits, we have resources available within our program as needed. We've had people that have been in our program for a significant amount of time, and then it's that last visit where they're like, I'm ready for change, and we're ready for them at the same time. Promoting dignity, one thing that we've found with the program is if we help validate an individual's dignity and personhood, that they're more likely to engage with us. So we do things like providing very light nourishment, so like even a water or light snack to help help that person feel like they're in a space where they can be listened to and trusted. Hygiene, we've had a variety of hygiene items donated to us, including donations from people who work within the program, again, to help promote individual dignity. We provide paper bags to individuals, and we do have a variety of donated items that we'll pass along. Looking at the cost, so I looked through at the supplies that we provide to somebody, kind of try to create like a median or average for an individual that we serve with the program. And when you balance it all out, the supplies come out to about $21. That's including both fentanyl and xylazine test strips, which are one of the most expensive costs, as well as the Sharps containers. When we break down the supply cost, $8.68 comes from private sources. We're currently funded by the Otto Bremer Trust for the supplies that are not eligible for federal money. And then federal funds pay for $12.68 of that. No city funds are used in the operation of this program or in purchasing supplies. So in conclusion, our program faces a delicate task of balancing a lot of different approaches and perspectives. I know this is a very difficult program to hear about, and it can cause visceral reactions to individuals hearing about the way that we're serving people. But for each different part of the community, we're trying a different approach to reach people where they're at. And so this is a challenging population that we're trying to reach, and so we have to try and build a program that they want to come and visit us with. We kind of weave together this common theme of support without condemning, acknowledging risks without normalizing, and I think that's really important. We don't want to normalize substance use. Extending beyond prosecution, so that means that there's a lot of root causes to addiction. And we really do try with this program to try and get people back to the root causes. Just getting somebody housed, for instance, is a really good way to get somebody to reduce their substance use. Person-centered responses, and then we certainly have been working hard over the past year to increase prevention, especially primary prevention, into our strategy. With that, I'm open to any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Dulitz?
I have a question.
Ms. Wasowski, please.
Do you promote this program to minors?
No, our policy is that we cannot serve minors, and minors cannot be like in our office while someone is being served.
It's my understanding, though, that you also, you're not allowed to ask the identity of these people, or could you explain, kind of the paperwork process that someone, or the process that someone would need to do to actually acquire these supplies from you?
Councilmember Ozowski, when someone comes on their first visit, we do have an intake process for an individual to become part of the program. And so becoming part of the program, you get an identification card that you're part of the program, which can help if you're ever picked up with supplies or things like that. So what they provide is some basic background information. They provide the first two letters of their first name, the first two letters of their mom's name, their month of birth, and their year of birth, and that creates their identity that we use to follow them from visit to visit. North Dakota law says this has to operate as an anonymous program in that respect. So we don't ask anybody any personally identifying information.
I guess, how would you determine if someone is under the age of 18 or over the age of 18 if we're not even allowed to, ask for identification or anything like that?
Councilmember Ozowski, it's the individual has to report their month and year of birth.
I mean, I could write down that I was born in 92, but that doesn't make it real. So how do you verify that these people are over the age of 18?
It's based off of what the individual does report to us. There's lots of situations where an individual would potentially be served and they could be in the same spot where they would end up lying.
So we're not allowed to sell cigarettes to people under the age of 18. We're not allowed to sell booze, but we're, I guess, probably not liable if we give them a free drug pack, huh? To me, this really looks like, I was taken back by, I guess, how many different supplies we're actually handing out. I thought it was just a needle program. To me, it looks like a drug paraphernalia kit. Also, how many needles does a person get when they come in?
So Councilmember Ozowski, we operate on a 1-for-1 plus model. So on an individual's first visit, they get 20 syringes. That's 2 packs, sorry. And then they're expected to bring back what they use. We weigh the sharps container, and then we'll give them 10 more than what they brought back.
So if they bring back 20, you'll give them 30?
Yep, and then it's a way for them to, it's kind of a mid-ground for both the individual and for us to build up a rapport with each other. So as long as they keep bringing back, then we can help them meet what their need is, and then they don't have to come in as often.
So how, I read the last slide where it talked about, I think, like 260 people since 2019. I believe that's kind of what you and I discussed before. How many of these people are like coming in, and like how long are these people on this program? Are these people actually reaching out for help, or are they reaching out to get free drug supplies?
So Councilmember Ozowski, of the people that we've served in the program, the roughly 264, 100 of those have only had a single visit. Of the remaining 165 people, it kind of varies in the length of time. There are individuals who have been in the program, basically since we've started, but then there's probably 2 to 3 times as many who have been with the program for a little bit and then dropped out. And we also have people that are kind enough to come back and share their stories with us about the way that the program has helped them as a stepping point for the recovery.
So I guess out of all the people that were kind of in the past, do we know how many of them have recovered? How many are dead? How many have moved out of our area? Can you give us any kind of statistics like that?
So Councilmember Ozowski, I can provide anecdotes, but based off of the way that the program operates, I can't give you an idea on, follow up on individuals systematically, because there's not a way that I can provide the follow up. It's kind of a one-way street for people to come to us. I can't necessarily go to people.
So what would be like the purpose of like the mouthpiece given? I guess I just don't understand how some of these items that we are providing are really doing anything. I mean, people smoke cigarettes and cigars. Are we giving them free mouthpieces?
So Councilmember Ozowski, the mouthpieces can be used for individuals who are smoking drugs, especially stimulants. Stimulants have a tendency to dry people out, and so if you're using stimulants frequently, you end up with dry, cracked lips, and that can create a source for blood spread in between individuals. So you may get blood on a pipe, and that's an opportunity for it to be spread to somebody else who may also have dry, cracked lips. And it also starts a conversation with individuals about safer use. So, within, North Dakota law, it doesn't make, we can't provide pipes or anything like that. And, that creates, a challenging question on, do you provide pipes, things like that. We don't do that, but it does start the conversation with somebody.
What would a needleless syringe be used for?
So a couple different options for needleless syringes. Needleless syringes can be used for, as part of using like a wheel filter for filtering substances. It can also be used for alternative administration, oral administration, or rectal administration.
All right. So what's the program called? It's called the Syringe Service Program. So I guess how did the other prevention slide where it has the dental dam and the condoms and the lubricant, I guess how did, kind of the safe sex and the needle program and then this food portion, how did they all get kind of lumped together? Because this is a syringe program, and I mean, it looks like there's a lot of other things that you are offering our citizens besides syringes.
So Councilmember Ozowski, the first goal of the program is to prevent the spread of diseases associated with injection drug use. That also includes any other infectious disease. So HIV can be spread by condomless sex, for instance, and so providing that as a touch point where it may already be difficult to reach somebody to give them condoms, it just seemed to fall within both the goal of the program and the available resources to us.
Do you have to go through the syringe program to acquire the sexually transmitted infection portion?
So Councilmember Ozowski, we provide those in, if anybody wants to come to the program and get those supplies, that doesn't really fall in with what is, kind of the regulated supplies that we provide. And so they can come and get those without being part of the program.
So what exactly do you have to be a part of the program to acquire that? Just the needles and the rest, you don't have to be a part of the program?
Councilmember Ozowski, it would fall under anything that would be constituted as drug paraphernalia. So that would be needles, probably the test strips, for instance, since those would be covered under the drug paraphernalia statute.
I also, you made a comment about how they're anonymous when they come in, and then, it might help in case they get pulled over with their supplies later. So if they acquire drug paraphernalia through the needle program, is that different than going around with your own personal drug paraphernalia?
So Councilmember Ozowski, we provide the card stating that somebody is a participant in the program and has an expiration date. So it has their code, expiration date, as well as the initials of who provided the card. What happens with that card after that and how they interact with law enforcement. The law enforcement's aware of it, but we aren't involved in the actual interaction. So that's just for the individual to provide to law enforcement to say that they are part of the program, and then the ultimate decision is up to the prosecuting attorney on how that gets used.
I guess
and
law
interpreted.
enforcement is here. Could you, if you pulled over someone that had, their own drug paraphernalia versus the drug paraphernalia from public health with their special little card, can you explain how you would treat those situations differently, or if you would?
Councilmember Osowski, first, in and of itself, what makes it paraphernalia would actually be the presence of some type of residue
Okay.
or use on there. Just the mere fact that you're carrying a syringe or cotton balls or something as they were leaving doesn't necessarily equate to paraphernalia. It's just like you can walk into certain outlets and what I would call a bong, that says it's a tobacco, a water tobacco pipe. It doesn't become illegal until you introduce the actual controlled substance into it. So, and again, Mr. Dulitz is right, and we honestly haven't really ran into anybody that I'm aware of, but our officers are aware of the cards. But if there's, let's just say, used needles, and someone tries to tell us it's 2 a.m. and they're going downtown to get new needles, that obviously wouldn't ring well with us. At that point in time, we would obviously do a long form complaint to the state's attorney's office and make the determination as to if the state's attorney would wish to pursue charges or not. So there is fail-safes built into it. I know it can get kind of quirky, and I think, like Mr. Dulitz says, there was a lot of these discussions that happened on the front end to try to mitigate any problems on the tail end of it.
Okay, thank you. Is it a requirement that we hand out these cards then, I guess? I don't really understand the purpose of the cards, if...
It's not a requirement, it's a part of their program. I can't speak to their program, but for us at least, let's just say somebody gets in a traffic crash on 4th Street, and we come up and we approach the car and we see needles sitting there in plain sight, and the guy says, I just was leaving from here, I exchanged it, here's my card, tends to bring a little more credibility as in case something was happening. But it's not written into Century Code, it's not a law, it's the part that they would use for tracking as they go through their program. But the officer still has to make further investigation into any contact that we had to determine if they've met the qualifications to be cited for the offense.
All right, thank you so
Thank you.
much. I guess those are all the questions I have at this point.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Weber, please.
Mr. Jewett, thanks for all the information and for your work. This is what is known as a harm reduction approach to this issue, and harm reduction is an alternative approach to locking people up for having a disease, is essentially what we're talking about. One of the goals of a program like this is to create a setting and a relationship that would help people at least attempt to resolve their addiction when they're ready to do so. But the main goal, as you mentioned, is disease prevention. I often hope that we can support policies to promote quality of life, but we understandably have different views about what quality of life is and what the best way to promote that is. We tend to all be interested in saving money. And a program like this, even if you are only able to prevent a handful of diseases, those diseases are often very expensive. The treatment is very expensive, and the treatment is usually delivered at the emergency room, where the individuals are not able to pay for their own care. Who ends up paying for that care if they are not able to pay for that?
Councilmember Weber, I would assume that the taxpayer would if they're unable to pay, or the hospital would take that on.
Very good. Thanks.
Any other questions? Mr. Weigel, please.
Yeah, that's all.
Question for Mr. Gosted. We know that if I provide drugs and somebody overdoses and dies, I can be criminally charged. If the city or Grand Forks Public Health provides needles and somebody dies, could we be civilly sued?
The answer is you can be sued for really any reason. You could be named as a defendant in any reason. If you're involved in a set of circumstances. With that said, however, there are immunities that are afforded to governmental bodies, and I don't know if I haven't done the research. I suspect there's probably some immunities that play into this, particularly when it's based upon a statutory authority to engage in this type of program. I just don't know the extent of those immunities, but you only get the immunities. You'd have to assert those immunities in the civil litigation if it would happen to arise.
Thank you. Mr. Dulitz, we've had drug overdose deaths in Grand Forks over the last how many years? Have anybody that has been using our needle exchange program died?
Councilmember Weigel, to my knowledge, I am very limited in what I know because most identities of individuals I don't know in the program. There has been one individual that I did come across an obituary for that was from out of this area that I did come across an obituary for, and it was many months after they had last come to the program. So that was one individual, that I can think of off the top of my head, just being completely transparent. That said, when you look at overdose deaths in our community, compared to where we are or where the nation is at, we've stayed relatively flat when we look at both overdoses and overdose deaths. And so I do think that this is contributing to it by providing that access to naloxone a lot sooner based off of the experiences that I've heard from the people that do come to us for services. Where it is really challenging, though, is for people who are smoking, for instance, smoking opioids and things like that. They aren't necessarily as connected to a service like ours to get naloxone, maybe a little bit more hesitant on revealing their drug use to somebody else and things like that. And so that does worry me as far as where we're seeing overdose deaths happening in the community.
How effective do you think, I know at one point you presented the numbers as far as, I think, hepatitis C, and the numbers have gone down. How effective is this program in getting somebody clean? We talk about anecdotal, stuff, but at the end of the day, how many people are getting clean from this program because of the services that are connected to it?
So Councilmember Weigel, that's not, as much as I would love to have the data to answer that question, I don't have individual data from Grand Forks. That just isn't possible. But when you look at certain service programs in general, they generally say they're about 5 times more likely to enter into treatment services. One of the reasons why we are at the Spectra Health building is because that gives us access to essentially a vertical integration for treatment services. So since we've started this program, we've also supported Spectra Health in bringing on an addiction counseling program. And so they have 2 addiction counselors, and our access to them has been excellent. So when we have somebody who says, I'm ready for change, probably 75% of the time, if I pick up the phone, I actually get the addiction counselor right there, which is very difficult in most other circumstances. And so in that respect, the program has been effective in bringing people a lot closer to that addiction-related service.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Jones, I just had one question. You talked that we've been flat versus what's the national trend been? Is that there been a kind of a spike? It's gone higher. Have we been outperforming that? I mean, any drug use that leads to any drug use period is not good, but where have we been versus nationally when it comes to overdoses and deaths?
So Mayor Bochensky, the overall trend is still pointing upwards, unfortunately. So in the past couple of years, the number of opioid overdose deaths happening in the United States has surpassed 100,000 for both years. And so, we're still seeing a lot of mortality depending on the part of the country that you're in. And, we certainly haven't been seeing that locally. Regionally, there's still been some increase, but not nearly as pronounced as what we've been seeing nationally.
All right. I think, continuing to see if you're getting positive outcomes of this. Obviously, this is two-sided. We have a police force that tries to stop the supply. We don't want drug users. That's the demand side. You have to hit both sides of this. I don't think anyone up here likes this program at all. We understand that it can help be an interface, but I think the more you can show there's positive outcomes can make, certainly people that are bigger critics of it, more believers in it. So I guess that would be my ask to you is try to get it. I understand the privacy, but more than anecdotal, where we're seeing positive outcomes would definitely be helpful to this body, I think. So thank you, Mr. Dulitz.
Can I say one more?
Please.
I find it very disturbing that we can't track data on this, and I find this program to be very enabling almost. I'd like to motion to discontinue the syringe program.
For the sake of discussion, I'll second.
So we got a motion and a second. I guess the question would be, are we prepared? Do you have enough information? And would this be needed to be moved to action items from a presentation, Mr. Gostad, or how do we want to proceed? Since it's on the agenda, do we have freedom under our rules of order?
Certainly, the city council can move and act on a motion.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry.
President Sarani,
Does the
please.
city council have authority to discontinue the syringe program?
That I don't know either.
I've learned all sorts of things about what we have authority and don't have authority over recently.
Can you talk about, Mr. Dulitz, I don't know if you were here, what year did this program start and where did the program derive its authority from?
So Mayor Bochensky, the program started in 2019. Century Code and North Dakota Administrative Code lays out the procedures that you need to put together a program, and so we had to fulfill those. as the public health department, including being in contact with our with our policy-making bodies, having a community meeting, having a public meeting, and then providing that information to the state that we've made everybody aware that this is going to exist. And so one of the areas that I did ask for concurrence would be to the city council. At the time, we were located in the county office building, so I asked for concurrence from them since we're a city-county entity. But ultimately, you're the one that signs our paychecks too.
So I guess, I don't know if this would be a question for the health director or not, but if this body did act to essentially eliminate this program, you would take that as a guide to eliminate the program?
Under the guise of what I'm directed to do.
Okay, I'm getting nods on that. Well, I guess further discussion, back to the council. President Sandy, please.
So, I did second the motion. I don't know if I'm prepared to end the program today, but I think it's no surprise that I've had heartburn about this program for a long time. I think we give away too many syringes. I also think that, and I advocated for us collecting data previously, and so I probably won't vote to end the program today, Mr. Dulitz. And I recognize that there is that balance of privacy and wanting to help people that probably won't want to leave their names. But I'd really like to see us. Actually tracking data so that we can identify if we're doing things right or not. Mayor, I think the city attorney would like to speak.
Mr. Gastad, would you like to speak?
I would. I think, given the fact that this is a motion that was brought during a presentation, it's certainly, you can certainly act on it, but if you're looking to gather more information so that you can make an educated vote, I would suggest that you simply move to postpone the motion, allow Mr. Dulitz to gather the information and public health to gather information so that the council members have as much information as possible before making a decision, before voting either for or against something tonight that you may not have all the information available to you.
Well, I think the information you're looking for is not something he's going to go back and gather. I think that what was presented was probably about as much information as available without taking 6-12 months to really review it. So I guess that's the question I'd pose to council is what motion's been made. It'd be.
Mayor, I've got a quick question.
Yeah, please, Mr. Wiley.
Mr. Dulitz, anybody can drop off used needles, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so anybody can drop off used needles. If somebody that is diabetic comes and wants to get a pack of needles because they lost their medical insurance or something along those lines, would you provide them a pack of 20 needles?
Councilmember Weigel, individuals who are seeking services just for insulin are more than welcome to come and be part of the program. They have to follow the same procedure as everybody else, but we have had individuals come to the service, come and be part of the program for that reason.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion, a second on the floor. Why don't we do a roll call vote on this one? Ms. Storstad, if you want to throw a random order.
Sure.
So the motion, if you could repeat the motion as you read it, or do you have that, Sherry, as the motion was stated? It was just to eliminate the program. Was there anything
I
else?
believe the motion was made by Osowski, seconded by Sandy, to discontinue the program.
Okay. So, please.
Okay, I'll start with Osowski.
Yes.
Lensky.
No.
Kavami.
No.
Veen. Weigel.
Yes.
Weber.
No.
And Sandy.
Yes.
Okay, it looks like I got a
Motion
3 to 4.
fails.
The motion was defeated.
Correct.
that
3
correct?
yes, 4
Okay.
no, motion fails.
All right, thank you. That's all for awards, presentations. Thank you, Mr. Dulitz. We'll move on to 3 public hearings and second readings of ordinances.
3.1, public hearing and second reading of ordinance and final approval of the plat of University Park Second Edition located at 320 North 25th Street and 2100 Fifth Avenue North.
All right, thank you. We're going to open the public hearing on item 3.1. Anybody here to speak on item 3.1? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing portion. Got a motion to approve from President Sandy, second from Ms. Osowski. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
And 3.2, public hearing and second reading of ordinance to amend the Grand Forks Comprehensive Plan to include the Grand Forks East Grand Forks 2050 Street and Highway Plan update.
All right, thank you. And I know we have some other supporting actors on this item, but I'm going to open the public hearing to be able to hear from the public first. So I'd start with if you had any cards that were delivered, and then we'll open the floor. So there was no cards. So is there anyone here to speak on item 3.2 this evening from the public? Open the public hearing. All right, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing portion of this. And Mr. Phelan, why don't you give us a little bit of background on this, and then we'll open it up to council to discuss.
Sure. Number one, I want to thank, we have 2 representatives from the North Dakota DOT and 1 representative from Federal Highway. And so Michael Johnson and Wayne Zocker are from the North Dakota DOT, and then Kristen Sperry, who's online, is from the Federal Highway Administration. So they're here to answer any particular questions directly, since they know that. You also know Michael Johnson because he's been in front of you virtually regarding the I-29 interchange. So Michael did a lot of help getting us that project across the board too. So thanks for that with Michael. I think tonight, I'll hand it back over to you. I know there's a lot of questions, and we have the subject matter experts from the federal and state governments. I just want to also highlight whatever we do. We want to make sure our federal and state partners know that, that we appreciate all the assistance they've provided us. You just have to point to the underpass at 42nd and Demers and the I-29 interchange. I think we want to make sure our partners know the issue we have is a geographic issue. We have one city that's 8,000. We have another city that's 60,000. We have a larger, Grand Forks has a much larger geographic presence than East Grand Forks. We have the one issue, and it's quite remarkable, we have a large plan that's going to go into a large binder or perhaps binders, and we're down to one issue, which is an important issue. And it's an issue that we have that is different than East Grand Forks than for Grand Forks. That intercity bridge would go into a greenfield. In Grand Forks, it's going to go into existing neighborhoods, wherever it goes. So I think just so our federal and state partners know, it's not that we're trying to be obstinate on this whole issue. This is a challenging issue for Grand Forks, and it would be easier for Grand Forks, much like on Merrifield Road. We're all for the Merrifield Road Bridge. Why? Because number one, we need it, and it's going to impact Grand Forks and East Grand Forks in an equivalent way in Polk County and in Grand Forks County. So on that. The other thing I think that's really important, whatever you plan to do, this is a planning level document. All these plans have to come back to execution, and you have to want to move ahead with all the various projects. So on the intercity bridge, you did approve a 50-50 cost share with East Grand Forks for that river crossing study. I think they're nearly wrapped up with that particular project. They're going to come back and want to ask for an amendment to that project. So certainly whatever is passed or not passed regarding the intercity bridge, there's going to be plenty of opportunities to not move forward regarding funding for this bridge, and you're going to get it sooner rather than later, because they're wrapping up that first phase, and they're going to want to come back to Grand Forks to see if you're a willing funding partner in that vein. So with that, Mayor, I see we also have representatives from the MPO, but I think they would rather defer to our state and federal partners regarding the MPO issues.
Sounds good. I have one question, then I could open it up if that would be fine. It's probably for the MPO, so maybe if Stephanie, if you wouldn't mind, we've talked a lot about federal funding and how this could apply to whether or not a plan gets approved. I know the city just last week got the 47th interchange added to the state STIP, which is a big move forward for that project. If you look at that project, you look at the 42nd underpass, you look at the Washington underpass, you look at 5th Avenue, 5th Street. The city's got over $100 million in projects that are going to have federal funding tied to it. I'm not as familiar. What projects does the East Grand Forks side have coming up what roughly dollar amount would there be? Because, you're talking about 9 figures on this side of the river. Where would that be at if we had to put a dollar figure on the east side?
Easy answer to that, it's not even close to what's going on this side.
Like not close, like a million, not close, like zero?
I don't have exact figures. Projects these days for street projects, they go easily into the millions, but it doesn't come close to the size of projects on this side.
Okay, so there's a huge disparity on
Yes.
what side be getting this funding. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
President Sandy, you got something?
Yeah, Mayor, thanks. I do have a variety of questions. Some of them are for the MPO, but I can defer. So some of the questions that I have are the same questions I had 2 weeks ago. The entities that must approve the transportation plan and where they are in the process, based upon what we heard 2 weeks ago, although we're getting a presentation in the city of East Grand Forks and the Planning and Zoning Commissions, none of us actually get a vote. What we're doing here today apparently is completely irrelevant because the MPO is an autonomous group that actually makes the decisions on the transportation plan for the city of Grand Forks, which that group includes unelected people so unelected people are making decisions that become part of city ordinance, which I have a real hard time with that. So ultimately, my next question is who actually has the final say? The members of the MPO so the MPO Executive Committee makes the final decision, and they have a meeting on Wednesday, I believe. Mr. Veen's Wednesday? And so the MPO Executive Committee is going to get recommendations, I presume, then from the City Council of Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, and then the Technical Advisory, the MPO Technical Advisory Committee, and the MPO Technical Advisory Committee last week, with the exception of 3 people from the City of Grand Forks, they voted to support the current plan. 3 people from the City of Grand Forks wanted to remove the intercity bridge from the plan, but they were outvoted. So the MPO Technical Advisory Committee has made the recommendation to the MPO to support the current plan. What I don't understand, I believe it was 1998, it could have been 1999, but the MPO bylaws were changed. The original bylaws actually required the MPO to get approvals of both governing bodies, the City of Grand Forks and the City of East Grand Forks. I find it interesting that right after the flood, probably when the two communities were at odds, because we're growing differently, the MPO, who makes their own bylaws, they moved, seconded, and passed to change the bylaws so that they don't actually have to get approval of their plans by either of our cities. I also find that bizarre. I find it bizarre that the City of Grand Forks was okay with that at the time. Here's a question for either the feds or Minnesota or North Dakota DOT. I don't see anywhere in the MPO bylaws that require the MPO Executive Committee to get approval of the plan by either North Dakota or Minnesota DOT prior to their taking their final vote. Is that in federal law? Is there a state or a federal law that says the MPO has to get the approval of the plan from North Dakota or Minnesota DOT prior to going for certification of the plan? Does anybody have that answer?
Yeah, President Sandy, this is Michael Johnson, North Dakota DOT in our local government division. Hopefully you can hear me okay. The Metropolitan Transportation Plan is a unique item in the fact that the federal requirements require the states and the federal government to accept the final plan. It is a locally developed and initiated plan involving all jurisdictions at the table through a long planning process. We review and comment on the plan. We are provided a management level presentation of the plan to get details and the information relative to the findings of the plan. But at the end of the day, after the local policy board has approved the plan, it is provided to us for acceptance. And then once we accept the plan, we give the MPO their shot clock for their next update, which is every 5 years.
But so I guess I hear what you're saying. Are they legally required to get your approval of the plan prior to submitting the plan? Or is it a courtesy to work with you to let you know what they're doing?
So legally required, President Sandy, is maybe a strong word. If we were presented something that we disagreed with, whether it be related to how they carried out the planning process, whether they're violating any planning regulations, if they're inappropriately identifying funding sources that we would strongly disagree with, there are mechanisms in place for us to work with the MPO and rectify those issues before they would finalize that plan. But again, it's at the end of the day, there's not a here in North Dakota DOT approves your final plan as it is an acceptance of the plan locally.
So, Mr. Johnson, thank you again for being here, and I appreciate that you've taken the time to travel to Grand Forks in the past too. You're a real good advocate for the city of Grand Forks, and I certainly appreciate your helping the MPO on this. Do you have any idea? Can you take a guess as to when you first started working with the MPO on this plan? I have my staff member Wayne Zocker, who was on with us as well. He started working with the MPO on this particular plan when it first started. I don't recall the date initially, but I have been working with the MPOs since 2011 when I first moved to local government division. And so I went through 2 or 3 plans myself with the MPO and the local jurisdictions. Is it fair to say that they started working with the state many months ago on the plan?
Yes.
So do you have any idea why the MPO wouldn't be working with the city on the plan at the same time they're working with the state when the plan is for the city, not the state?
Well, President Sandy, to speak to that, you'd probably have to dive more into questions related to how the MPO approached their plan development. So
Okay.
as part of the plan, our experience has seen that engagement through the planning process is in many different forms. Typically, the MPO will hire a consultant team that will lead them through the effort. And then through that process, they will develop steering committees. Sometimes they have leadership committees. And then they also have technical advisory committee and occasional policy board briefings throughout the process. So there is a process that's typically followed through all planning documents, not just the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, that engages with the local jurisdictions at different levels. Now, there are probably instances where the information shared, provided to technical staff, is put at their feet to do what they can to share that back in their offices with their managers and leaders to make sure they're aware of the plan as well.
Got it. Thanks. Good info. Again, maybe this is just a rhetorical comment, but again, back in 2018, so the MPO has had 5 years to put this plan together. Back in 2018, and rehashing history, the Planning and Zoning Committee in the city of Grand Forks moved to remove the bridge location, the intercity bridge, from the plan. Grand Forks County, who apparently county doesn't count anymore because they're not even being asked to review the plan this go around, but 5 years ago, they moved to remove the bridge from the plan. And the city council, although it was defeated on a 4-3 vote to remove the bridge. But I find it peculiar that, knowing that it was so close to being removed from the plan 5 years ago, that we would wait until the 11th hour to come to the city of Grand Forks. But I understand why now, because the MPO doesn't care what the city of Grand Forks thinks, because we don't make the decision on the plan. Again, perhaps, Michael, that's nothing to you. That's a statement perhaps a rhetorical statement. Mayor, would you indulge me for a second? Can I go to the podium and I want to talk about the bridge location?
Please.
Thank you. Where are we? Okay, so does everybody agree this is Google Maps, right? This is the city of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks. I just want to take a second just so that we can all get on the same page and understand what we're talking about here. So you can see essentially the city limits of Grand Forks and then the city limits of East Grand Forks. Does everybody agree that I've got my geography approximately correct? Okay, so I'm gonna scroll in because I want to show people one thing that I think some people misunderstand. This right here off of Minnesota Avenue is the Point Bridge, okay? And this heading north is the Murray Bridge. The Red River is here, and then the Red Lake River runs kind of east-west there, Red River north and south. This area right here is the problem that the city of Grand Forks and the city of East Grand Forks have. This is where we're talking about we have all of this traffic that we need to fix, okay? Does everybody see that those two bridges are right next to each other? There's no disputing that, right? Okay, now let me back out a second and talk about what we're talking about today. This is 32nd Avenue South, okay? Now, I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, and I think it's relevant to mention it again today. Not that long ago, the city of East Grand Forks updated their 2050 land use plan. The 2045 land use plan had commercial development in southeast Grand Forks, down here. They removed that commercial development from their plan. They no longer have any additional commercial development planned for the southern edge of the city of East Grand Forks, okay? That's relevant. Now, one additional question I have. Can we all agree that the commercial area in the city of East Grand Forks, commercial and industrial, it runs along Highway 220 North, it runs downtown in East Grand Forks, and then it runs over to Business Highway 2 and up and around. This is your commercial and industrial corridor. Does anyone dispute that? So if you're a resident of the city of Grand Forks, unless you have business at someone's home in southern East Grand Forks, or you want to go to the hockey arena, which certainly people in Grand Forks go to the hockey arena, unless you have one of those places to be, what is the methodology? What I'm trying to figure out is, Mr. Veen mentioned that millions of dollars are going to be saved in transportation. Millions of dollars, which is why this bridge is so important. I'm trying to figure out who in Grand Forks is going to be saving any of this money. And the reason I bring that up is because when you look at 32nd Avenue South that runs east-west, anybody that lives north of 32nd Avenue South, explain to me who of those people are going to drive south, cross the bridge, get on Reinhardt Drive, end up at the missing roundabout where you can't cross Bigland, which is right here, and then ultimately end up in the exact same spot where you would have gone had you just driven north on, I don't know, the interstate up to Demers, Columbia Road up to Demers, Columbia to Gateway, Washington, or Belmont. Anyone that lives north of 32nd Avenue is not going to go down to 32nd Avenue so that they can end up in the same spot. They're not going to go east and then travel back west. It's not going to happen. I don't care what models people are running that say that's going to happen. People, that's not how people drive. That's not how people behave. Now, further to that, if you live west of South Washington, and there are a couple people here that do, Mayor, for example, you live south of 32nd Avenue and west of South Washington Street. So you will go north and past 32nd Avenue when you're going to East Grand Forks. Unless you have a neighbor or somebody that you want to meet over here, knowing that all of the commercial and everything else is up here, are you going to go west or go east to go back west to end up at the same spot? Or are you going to go up Washington and across at Demers or The Point or downtown, or Kennedy for that matter?
Probably not,
I think
yeah.
it's a rhetorical question. We all know the answer to that. So ultimately then, the way I see it, the people that live south of 32nd Avenue, yet east of Washington, these are the people that could potentially be using this 32nd Avenue bridge. Mr. Kavami, you live down in this neighborhood, you represent these people. Are you going to take the 32nd Avenue bridge, go up Reinhardt, thank you. Go up Reinhardt, not be able to get across Bigland because there isn't a roundabout there that should be, and then somehow go through the residential neighborhoods to get to Bernie's? Is that your plan, or would you go up Belmont?
I'd use Belmont.
Right. And so I continue, so I know that we have traffic models. We can model all we want. Looking at the map, that's not how people behave. Putting a bridge there will not be representative. So here's the way I see it. Here's what I think is going to happen. And again, I'm a guy that loves to predict the future. You're going to have one-way traffic from East Grand Forks across in the morning, and then you're going to have one-way traffic from Grand Forks back into East Grand Forks in the afternoon. It's going to be great for the people that live south of the Point Bridge in East Grand Forks. And here's what I believe. I believe the people that live in the rest of East Grand Forks are not driving down to 32nd Avenue South to cross. Even if they're going to the mall, they're going to take the convenient bridges that are right there, because why are they going to want to have to traverse through all of the residential neighborhoods? Again, this is just what I believe. But based upon this, if what we're being told by the MPO is true, that the traffic across the Point Bridge is 50-50 Grand Forks and East Grand Forks, you're only capturing about half of that traffic from southeast Grand Forks going somewhere else. You still end up with 75% of the traffic that's at the point will continue to be at the point, and now all we've done is very slightly reduce the traffic by Phoenix, yet we put a bridge in people's backyard. And so I don't believe approving a bridge in South Grand Forks just so that we can get minimal relief on Minnesota Avenue and 4th, to me, it just doesn't make sense. I would rather see us, because we know this is the problem, we need to take aggressive steps to fix the traffic problems at the point and quit worrying about where we put another intercity bridge. So if you'll, thank you, if you'll indulge me a little further.
Sure. That's the first time anyone's clapped for Dana in 4 years.
So that's how I feel about the bridge. I did have a couple other questions. Perhaps somebody from DOT could answer this for me. I believe it is possible that this council could support the 2050 plan and ask for the removal of the intercity bridge. If a miracle happens and the MPO Executive Committee agrees, is it possible for the MPO to submit a plan, call it Plan 1A, with new traffic modeling to be submitted in the immediate near future. Is that acceptable to the feds and to the DOT?
President Sandy, this is Michael Johnston again. So, the questions you bring up are unique and not typical with what we would experience related to one of these plans. So, I'll speak on basically my thoughts on how it might transpire, what might work best, but having any kind of history or precedence is not really something we have related to this question. But in an ideal world, the jurisdictions and the MPO and the policy board finalize the plan that's gone through the 12 to 18 month planning process, and that plan document is available and it's ready for jurisdictions to implement as they see fit. Remembering it's a plan of what can happen, what could happen, not a plan of what must happen. If there was a desire to make a change at this point in the process that's been developed up to now, I'm not sure how an acceptance of a future amendment would be seen. Now, after a plan is finished, the MPO and its jurisdictions have every right to do amendments to that plan. So if there was an acceptance and there wasn't a finalization of the plan locally, there could be a discussion locally to determine whether or not more analysis should be done of if that intercity bridge were to be removed. What would that mean? How would that affect the plan? How would it affect the process that we went through? How would the public feel about it? What are those types of things? And if there is a different outcome that came from that process, an amendment to the plan 6 months, 9 months, 12 months after the January due date is something that would be available to the group to pursue.
So it's possible. It is possible that we can submit a plan that, and with a further amendment to come.
Yeah, as long as that submittal was approving as is today with the known option of pursuing amendments later.
Can the consultants tell me how long it would take to rerun the traffic models?
I guess the other question would be if the plan is what may happen, not what must happen. It may happen whether the bridge is there or not, the traffic studies. I mean, is there any reason? Anyway, please, Salva.
That's hard to say right now how long that will take them, but I can actually ask them the question in the near future. But I guess the motion you made earlier was to remove all mention of the bridge. I'm not sure exactly how much you want to remove from it. If it's just like the line item from the illustrative list, do you want to go through the graphics, the data, the wording through, I guess, how much of it do you want it removed? And how much far we have to go back are you looking for?
I guess I can't answer that question. I asked for it all to be removed,
Right.
and so I would expect it all to be removed.
So at this time, since we've done presentations to the public, to different committees, it would be hard to remove it entirely. You can remove it from like an illustrative list, but to remove it would be kind of starting from all over from scratch, and we would have to re-present it to the public and ask for input that way and go through the committee. So that could take quite a few months just with that.
Guess what does that mean to remove it from the illustrative?
So we have a list of like near future projects. Those are all the projects that go into your tip. There's the medium projects, the ones that seem a little farther out, and then there's the long term, and then there's the illustrative list, like pie in the sky. If everything lines up and we got everything we wanted, funding, all this, that's possible. But it's a plan. Your hands are not tied to this. Again, any kind of project will have to come back to this body. You would have to vote for it. You would have to go after the funding. This is just kind of getting everybody's voice to the table and working as a group.
Chensky. May I add on to that?
Yeah, please.
Just adding on to what Stephanie's saying is, as part of the MTP development, Metropolitan Transportation Plan development, through the federal requirements, the MPO is required to have what's considered a fiscally constrained plan at the end of the day. And that plan lists, as Stephanie noted, near-term, mid-term, and long-term projects that are constrained within a reasonable assumption of revenue based on historical trends, grant programs available, state funding programs, local sales tax, all those types of things. But again, that's still just a plan of what could be and can be done. As Stephanie said, it all comes back to the local jurisdiction and identified need through the planning process that is unfunded.
All these lists of projects, near, medium, long-term, came from city staff and county staff and DOTs. Nothing of these projects came from the MPO or the consultant. This is working with staff and them basically telling us, what do you see that the city will need, what funding you're going to go after in the near future, and that's what went into the plan.
Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Veen, please.
Mr. Stanley, you've made a very passionate presentation, and obviously you're passionate about the subject, as you were 4 years ago, right? What I'd like to understand is you've made and expressed your opinion a lot, and you've said that. But I have no data to support any of that. In fact, the data that I see is contrary to what you've said. And the numbers that I have in the data show the benefits of an intercity bridge without a location, improve Gateway Drive, they improve Demers Avenue, they improve South Washington traffic studies by thousands of vehicles per day. So there's a lot more data here that I think has to be a part of the equation and the presentations for everybody to get the full grasp of it. Because what we're talking about isn't just moving traffic, it's about safety for the traveling public, and it's about safety for pedestrians and the like. So it's a really major issue. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the process that started some 12, 18 months ago had a really large public participation process that we were all invited to be a part of. And presentations were made intermittently, even at city council. So we've been through all of this process, and one of the things that I preferred about this plan versus, we'll say, 5 years ago, is we took out a specific location. We just said intercity bridge. In fact, this plan shows a bridge at the intercity, it shows one on Merrifield Road, and it shows one actually to the north of Grand Forks, as shown possible future locations that are incorporated into the study. I'm not a traffic engineer. I don't know anybody here that is, but these are not that simple as to be able to fully understand. And the modeling that they use is a model that is critiqued specific to traffic in Grand Forks, and I'm not saying this word right, but substantiated by fact of actual traffic here. It isn't just projections. Now, nobody can project 45 years down the road or 40 years, but it is the best available tool that's used universally as you start looking at traffic, future traffic patterns, right-of-way, lanes, all of that, and signalization. So I think the studies speak for themselves. This is at least the fourth or fifth in a row that all have identified the value and the importance of a intercity bridge. Multitude of different traffic engineers, different people on the MPO, they've all come back with the same decision. There's value in a intercity bridge, and you are right, if you look at it, Minnesota and 4th is the biggest area that sees the largest value. Now, as I looked at it, every bridge in there does bring benefit. the intercity bridge clearly has the best benefit-cost ratio and brings the greatest benefit. And it's the one that's in the city limits. The other ones are outside the city limits. So it's the one that we can control. So I think we've tried to do a public participation process that was, I know was at East Grand Forks Library and other locations where we all had the chance to do this. So if in fact this was what we wanted to do, it needed to start much earlier on in the process where we would have talked about it at that time, or it had been brought forward as something to constrain the study. Otherwise, it's left wide open. The other thing I believe we would need is we would need all the entities to agree to it, to incorporate it into the study. And that we would then look at that as the process as we would go forward. Because right now, MPO in both Grand Forks and East Grand Forks, or I should say, Grand Forks and East Grand Forks are all a part of this. The planning and zoning in Grand Forks, again, was a part of it, as is and the technical advisory committee is all a part of it. We try, I think, our hardest to make it non-politically, but technically accurate, so we can make informed decisions based on the facts, not on what people would expect or want it to say. So this thing here is really sound in it uses current data, using the best models that we can have, and has determined that there's value into doing this. Now, we can make the decision not to do it, because you got to fund it. But I think it's almost dangerous for us to politically manipulate the inputs into the model and not let the model speak for itself based on data and the current facts. And that's why the MPO does care. It does care about what's going on. We're trying to do the best job we can for all of us. We do act as one. I'll be honest with the MPO, we don't look at where that river goes and the alignment. We very much work to assist each other. This is probably one of the only times where we actually, it overlaps, where we're trying to figure out what the path forward is. But I don't know how you do it any better than what's been done. It has a public participation process, like I said. It is based on sound data. It has clear results of why you would want to do this. And I'm kind of at a loss of why or how we could do it differently. We've been doing it this way, for at least the last, I think it was 2003, there was an impasse again, if I'm accurate in that. But I don't think, and I disagree entirely that the MPO doesn't care. We certainly do care. And 2 city council people are on the MPO, and we absolutely care. We ran for it, we're elected, and we're representing the city council through this process, as we all are on various committees and get to represent the city in the directions that we go forward. So I don't know what more to say.
Mayor, if I may?
Yeah, can you go, and then I want to get, if you want to go shortly, I want to get to anyone else who wants to speak. And then go back.
Yeah,
You can-
real short. So why do we run models and put bridges in plan if we're not going to build the bridge?
Well-
Is the MPO assuming that the bridge is going to get built? Otherwise, you're creating a plan that can't be implemented.
The modeler is telling us the value of building the bridge. We still have the final say, but the model will give us that data that's available so we can make informed decisions.
Last question for you, Mr. Veen. So you just said you're representing the city of Grand Forks on that board. So if this council moves to remove the bridge from the plan, are you going to carry our message to the executive committee?
I've had that discussion, in fact, as with several people, about what is my responsibility for doing that. I've vacillated back and forth. I'm more inclined to represent the council as I go forward to the MPO, but I want you to know there's consequences of that. But that's been my reaction so far. If I were to change that, obviously, I'd let anybody know, but it is a city council decision, and we represent the city council.
If I could just say one thing, and I know you'd mentioned you want to keep inputs away from being politically motivated. I think from the start, these inputs have been politically motivated, whether it's a planning department saying there's going to be growth here and that gets inputted. I think from 1980 on, there's been politically motivated inputs into that model, and that would trouble me to just say that's happening now, because I think it's happened throughout the process. And that's the data you've gotten, and that's the data that you can use. But I think as you look at the past, you look at different plan, you even saw commercial was in there once at a certain area, and now it's not. You predicted growth in different areas. I think political motivations have been a part of it from the start to some degree.
And I'll challenge that, because there's nothing here that hasn't been forward that's brought by staff that does the best projection. It's not been based on politics. It's been based on professional judgment as each of these inputs are developed. I've never seen somebody come and artificially take something away.
Well, I guess I don't believe that East Grand Forks saw the data, then decided they wanted the bridge. I think they decided they wanted the bridge, and then the data ended up working out for them. I don't think that's but that's why I'd push back. So we're in disagreement there, but let's, I know Tricia and Ms. Lunsky, if you wanted to, no, you tried earlier.
So I think, Dana, I will have to disagree with you. I think if you live south of 32nd, and you need to run your kid to hockey practice, and you chug down Belmont, and you have to wait 4 blocks, traffic's backed up from 4th all the way to 8th, you're going to try a different route, because it's backed up every day, 8 and 3 and 5. So I don't think it's one way. It's supposed to double in the next 20 years. I don't think painting some bump outs or some crosswalks is going to help. We need some major change to eliminate that. We have 1,000 new beds coming to downtown with the new hotels, the new developments, which is super exciting. But that's 1,000 more beds. So I don't know if how you say that for cars, but we need to come up with a place for those people to get elsewhere. We have the water treatment facility coming, which is right on that bridge. We're dumping a lot of people in here. So to say that we can make it work without a bridge, I think is irresponsible. And I also think it's kind of funny that you and I can argue about the traffic when we don't have a degree or a background in traffic, but I see it completely different. I see that a lot of people utilizing that bridge, but honestly, I have no background in that, so I don't think anyone really wants to hear my responsibility or my thoughts. I have a question for the DOT reps. So if our federal funding is frozen, it's not like switching off our kid's debit card, right? Where we can just, one day it's froze, and then the next day we get it back. While that funding is froze, the DOT can reprioritize projects, and our projects will get pushed back. Is that truth?
Councilmember Lunsky, it would be a fluid kind of situation, but there's potential for any kind of scenario to occur. So the last time this situation happened, where the Metropolitan Transportation Plan was not adopted locally and completed on time, missed its deadline, we worked with our federal highway organization to determine the next steps. And at that time, what we did was the decision was made to freeze the Transportation Improvement Program. So the TIP document, which is the local document that mirrors the state's Transportation Improvement Program, and that identifies projects within the next 4 years that are programmed for funding. So at that time, what was decided is that projects not on the state highway system would not be able to move forward until the plan had been completed and updated. We would have to re-engage with our federal partners if this situation were to occur again, as rules and regulations have changed, staff has changed, oversight has changed, and determine what the actual next steps would be. But that's what had happened last time.
Thank you. And I think the other thing we're arguing about, we've never seen renderings or sketches about where a possible bridge could be. I had people calling me and asking me where the millions of dollars are coming to tear down all these houses. But that's never been in any study I've ever seen. So where this bridge will be, how it flows through a neighborhood, I mean, we've never even seen renderings of that or drawings. So I think there's so many arguments in the community that aren't real, or people are just making up stuff. So I think this study that we paid for 18 months ago, I think we just need to finish this study and see what they recommend. And I was also curious about, can we put it up for a citywide vote and just kind of be done with it and see what the city wants? You know, if then we could move on, we'd know if does the city want it, does the city not want it?
Mayor,
Mr.
if I
Green,
could,
please.
I think you asked the question that I was going to ask. I think there's two parts. There's the technical part about what this means, and then there's the ramifications of what happens. And we have a bidding coming up on the South Washington underpass. We do know that there's progression going to happen on the 42nd grade separated crossing. There's implications to the 47th interchange. There's a whole list of transportation improvement plans, especially for Grand Forks. There's some for the county. Of course, there's East Grand Forks and Polk County. So when I was looking at it, I was trying to look at what the benefits are, or the direction that comes from this body, also understanding the ramifications of not having agreement on the plan as it moves forward, because there are consequences. And what do you do? I mean, it creates a dilemma, and how do you move forward? My tendency, as I said earlier, is to support the council. That's who I represent here. But I do understand also there's ramifications if that doesn't match with what I guess all the other entities have already agreed to.
Thank you. Mr. Kavami, please.
Yeah, thank you. Just a few questions. So first one is for the folks online. So if the MPO Executive Committee or MPO edits the plan, would that be acceptable at the state and federal level to have an amended plan that's accepted now?
If I may clarify the question, if the decision was made at, say, this meeting tonight to say Grand Forks moves forward as long as the intercity bridge is removed, and then the policy board were to align with that decision, would the department accept the plan? Was that your question?
Correct. Yeah, whatever we do here locally in the city level, regardless, something would have to happen at the MPO for that to even mean anything, right?
Yeah, so I think what that would do is it would raise questions from both states and from our federal partners on what effort, what legwork, what planning level effort was done to just remove that project from discussion that had been involved with it from the get-go. We would want some sort of documentation, some knowledge, some public participation efforts that were gone through to make sure that it was vetted before just accepting it in that fashion.
So the answer is really no. So if we made that change or asked that change to be made, and then the MPO committee tried to do it, that could effectively stall out any efforts. So we're talking about something that might be a moot point or might not be. So next question, what's the purpose of the non-financially limited list?
Sure, very good question. So every time a plan starts, whether it be a metro-wide plan such as this one, or if it's maybe a sub-area plan in a neighborhood, the planning process goes through and looks at all potential needs, whether it be transit needs, bike and ped, roadway, lighting infrastructure, safety improvements at intersections. It kind of goes through the whole gamut of everything that could potentially be needed in that area. because there are always needs. There are always needs. There are always projects that are needed to improve the infrastructure and move the roadways and highways into optimal conditions. What the problem we run into, as I'm sure you've all experienced locally as well, is our money doesn't go as far as our needs go. And so there's always this universal list of projects. We have to have a list to start with, and the list always starts, and it's always bigger than what money we have available. So then we apply the money to the list, and that's when prioritization happens locally on what are the more imminent demands and more imminent needs. We still want to know what those unfunded needs are because they lead to certain things. Perfect example of that is the grade separation at 42nd Street and Demers Avenue. That has been a historical need for the community for decades, and it's always been an unfunded item in the Metropolitan Plan until now. We were able to put that need on the table, continue to keep it through the planning process, make it available for grant funding opportunities, and now we have a grant award and we're pursuing that actively. So that's a benefit to having those projects that are not funded, is they are shown as a planned need, and we would love to fund them if we can find the funding in the future. But as of right now, they're not hitting the mark for the funding that's available.
So my next question is, when we think about what's on that non-financially constrained list, I guess who determines what items get brought up? So we run a traffic study and it says there's congestion, and then one of the solutions is to put a bridge in. And I guess I'm curious if Grand Forks isn't, as a city council, driving to add that, so somebody else is, and so then they're finding a solution. So how is it that is it lack of our engagement or our efforts that we don't get to propose other inputs? And I'm being facetious here, but let's just say we think there needs to be a monorail, that's going to fix our problem. So can we add that input so that that's part of the discussion? Because, clearly there's one side of the story that really thinks this will fix the solution and another that doesn't. But it seems that having it on there, we're just acknowledging that, well, it solves the data problem, so we're just going to ignore half the side. So I guess, is that our fault that we weren't better engaged at providing those inputs during the modeling?
I can maybe start with that, but that question is probably more directed to our MPO staff and how projects are brought to them. So all the jurisdictions are solicited as part of the process to look at what are your needs, because each jurisdiction outside of this planning process is looking ahead to their infrastructure needs and identification of projects, and they typically bring that list and that identification to the MPO as part of this planning process and work with their consultant to then develop the universal list of projects. The modeling that's been mentioned several times helps to identify additional projects that maybe aren't necessarily as obvious to the naked eye as the community grows. One thing that's important to note with the modeling is it's not just running numbers. There is some valuable inputs related to that. The MPO goes through and does land use updates on both sides of the river prior to developing that model. So the land use is accounted for in the model. It helps to identify where jobs and houses and large traffic generators will be potentially located as the community grows. But I guess I'd let Stephanie add on to that.
Yep, so we knew with this study, and this is something that's been talked about since the 70s, that with the bridge study going on with this with the SRF, we knew that the cities weren't ready to make a decision. So we kind of, for the first time ever, removed the location. Location's always been called out in the past plans. This one, we're like, no, let's keep it, just call it intercity bridge. Let's let the process handle itself. There's no reason to put the cart before the horse and let bodies figure it out, and then just have a plan that states this is a viable option, but we're not forcing anyone to make a decision when they're not ready. So that was the way that we went forward, and I think it was kind of a good way to go, because it kind of was a neutral ground. We know that some people want it and some people don't, but then it's not forcing anyone's hand to make a decision.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Weber, please.
We are elected officials. The mayor, city council, we're elected officials. We call ourselves policymakers. We are engaged in a political process. So we do a lot of chest thumping and look for policy to drive the world. This MPO process is more of a bureaucratic process. And it's one that is putting tens of millions of dollars in federal funding on the table or taking them off the table for the next 5 years. So one of the things that I'm seeing here is we talk about the bridge, but it is at best part of the long-term, or as Ms. Halford said, the pie in the sky part of the plan. We have more immediate projects that we are focused on and that we've put a lot of time and effort in. The 47th Street interchange, the grade separation, other projects that will need to be done and will benefit from federal funding. So this fight between a political process and a bureaucratic process is putting that money at risk. And, there's a saying, would you rather be right or happy? And in this case, it could be, would you rather be right, or do you want tens of millions of dollars in federal funding? And what we have here is the potential of walking down a road that apparently has happened before. Mr. Johnson described a time in the past where the tip was frozen. And that meant that those federal dollars didn't come in, those projects did not move forward. And that is my greatest concern here at this time. However, President Sandy and I might feel about an intercity bridge, my greatest concern are these federal dollars coming in over the next 5 years. And that, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Johnson, Ms. Halford, anyone else who would wish to speak to this, that's kind of what's at risk here. Am I seeing that incorrectly?
That's correct.
I'll direct that to Mr. Johnson first. If you will.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Councilmember Weber. Yeah, that is definitely something that's on the table and should be considered if the tip were to be frozen, and what that potential ramifications that might lead to related to upcoming projects, and whether they're ready for construction or if they're in the early stages and we need to engage our federal funding identified for those projects. It has the potential to delay our ability to engage those funds. But again, I'll speak to saying we would have to really work with our federal partners if the situation were to occur on exactly what that means. I don't want to speculate too much, just referencing what has occurred in the past.
And Mr. Johnson, as President Sandy's already mentioned, thank you for your support for our city and for our transportation needs. But one other thing that you said there was, if we were somehow able to finesse this and move this plan forward with any mention, in fact, President Sandy says he wants no mention of the bridge in this plan at all, that at this point, the state and federal officials would have to look at this with some suspicion, because these are bureaucratic processes that are supposed to be built on consensus building and public input, long process. And if all of a sudden that process takes a 90-degree turn because of a 3-4 vote on a Monday night, that is not what this process is supposed to be built on. That in the federal funds that follow are built on an understanding that we would have that longer, I keep referring to it as a bureaucratic process. Am I also understanding that correct?
Councilmember Weber, I would say yes, you are. You have to make the assumption that while I'm engaged here today and Mr. Zucker is engaged here today, there are others that are involved in the final review and acceptance of this plan that aren't engaged in this long conversation. So the question would be asked, what planning process, what steps were followed to basically finalize the plan with the removal of a key element in the original planning process?
Thank you, sir. So it feels to me like we're using this issue of a bridge that's not going to that in all likelihood is not going to be built in the next 5, 10, probably even 15 or 20 years. We're using that as a major chit here in a game of chicken that is potentially jeopardizing tens of millions of dollars in federal funding. That's my understanding. It seems to be supported by what I've heard tonight, and I think that that's the main point for us all to keep in mind as we move forward towards a vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. I was just going to see if Mr. Weigel or Ms. Osowski want to add anything, and then we'll go back to people.
I just want to clarify to make sure I understand.
Yep, please.
So if we approve this the way it is, everything's fine. But if we go with like what we voted on last week, there is potential to hold up our federal fundings. Like what is the percentage? You know, like, is there a definite chance it would be held up, or is there a maybe? I'm just kind of trying to weigh that out. And then after that, so if we go with removing the bridge, then the MPO needs to go back and do the meetings again with the public, is that correct?
So we'll go back, hear what East Grand Forks has to say. Then we'll bring back what we heard from both councils to the MPO exec board.
Okay.
Then the MPO exec board will tell us how they want to move forward.
Okay, so then you said that that whole process would take about 6 months, right?
It's hard to say, depending, we'll definitely work closely with the consultants right away. They'll hear updates tomorrow, what happened tonight. Kind of get a timeline from them, and that's the way we move forward. Then we'll start looking at, well, what, and kind of working back, what do we need to do? What does that look like to the plan? And then working, it would have to go out to the public, but timeline, months, it's hard to say right now. It could be 6, 9 years, not years, but a year.
That's a long time.
I know, not years, but definitely months. a
Okay,
big handful
so
of
one,
months.
we just don't know how long it would take to just remove the mention of a bridge. I find that hard to believe that it would take 6 to 9 months, but okay. And then I guess I'm looking for an answer at, so if we submit this, I guess, in 6 months, how much of our funding would be held up? I'd like to understand, like, the probability of our money being held up versus just, potentially. I mean, potentially is.
How about as an example, how much money did we lose in 2003 when our funds were frozen? How long were they frozen and how much did we lose?
Thank you, Mr. Sandy.
I don't know if anybody here knows that, but I'm guessing none was lost.
Mayor,
in
if
that.
I think to Councilmember Wasowski, so what you are, I think Dan got the word, they're just, the MPO is consulting with you now. They're asking your opinion. Ultimately, the MPO executive board is going to make the final decision. I think the concern is whatever the recommendation moving forward, there's, if it disrupts with the planning process that has moved forward. So really, they're just asking you, so they can report, but you're just a recommending body at most to the MPO executive board.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan.
Somebody grab Mr. Weigel. You good, or did you? And everyone's got a chance, I believe, at that point.
When I look at this whole thing, I look at the data. Okay, I could maybe get behind that. But the other part that we don't talk about as much is the people, and there's people that live in that area here tonight. And I've said since the very beginning, there is nobody in this city that wants a bridge in their backyard besides me, over at 42nd and Demers. I'm the only one that wants a bridge over there. And thankfully, a lot of my neighbors agree with me, and so hopefully we're getting a bridge soon. But I think that's what we're really missing, is we're missing the point of where we talk to people in these neighborhoods. Some of these people have been established for years, have owned houses for years. I love my friends in East Grand Forks, and I travel over there quite often during the winter, but I've never been at 32nd and said, man, I wish I could jump across here. That's just my traveling. I've never done that. But again, I live up north. I've never lived on the south end of Grand Forks. But I think the thing that we're really missing is that the people that live that would be impacted in our community. Because at the end of the day, I don't care what East Grand Forks says. I don't work for them. I work for the people in Ward 1. And so, to me, it's backwards when I look at this whole process. We tell the MPO what we think. The MPO brings it to another community where they, again, tell the MPO what they think. And then the executive board tells us what it's going to be. We don't have a choice. They're going to tell us. But then at the end of the day, it comes back to the city when they get asked for funding.
So
For a specific project. Am I correct in kind of how I'm assessing it in a way?
kind of, I think something that's getting lost is we're not here to tell you what to do. You come to us and say what projects you want in the plan, and that's
Yep.
what we put in there. These are just recommendations. This is almost like a tool in your toolbox. You can take it out if you want to, use it. But unfortunately, you guys are tasked with the hard decisions of making these and actually implementing it. This is just an idea, just a plan.
And maybe I should clarify, the executive committee
Yeah.
makes the final decision. So I don't have a final decision in what occurs here, because I could say take it out, and they could say put it back in, and we're no farther ahead, correct?
On the planning document level, but implementing and make it in a reality still comes to this board.
Correct. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying is, on the planning level, I could say take it out, they could say keep it in.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the day, a year from now, when they come back and say, hey, we want funds for this, or we want funds for another study, I can say no to that.
Correct.
As a council member. So to me, it just seems like the process is backwards. I feel like I'm asking mom for money for my allowance. Dad says no, but then I come back to mom later on and hopefully she says yes again. It just, everything seems backward with their entire process. So I just wish we would engage the people that some type of intercity bridge would really impact. And we can host meetings, but we all know I've done ward meetings and the same 3 people show up every single time.
true.
But I wish we would go door to door and talk to people that would have a bridge that would impact them and really get what they think, so.
Thank you, Mr. Weigel. President Sandy.
Ms. Halford, so Mr. Haugen 5 years ago said that the MPO had a database of people that contact them about information, and he very directly told the council that they could notify people in that neighborhood when they were working on the transportation plan. Did we utilize that database? Did we notify folks that could potentially be affected by an intercity bridge?
I guess I'm not sure what database you're talking about. I mean,
I don't know. I'm talking about the database that Mr. Haugen said that the
yeah.
MPO has.
I mean, there's mailings and things like that and email lists that we can send out information and reach out to people. But the database, I guess I'm not sure what he was referring to. So that
Okay.
was before my time.
I'm not going to drag this out much longer. Mr. Johnson, one additional question. So if you're saying that the DOT and you might find it suspect and want to know what the MPO, what process was used to change the plan at the last hour, I'm hearing from Ms. Halford that it takes an act of God to do anything related to this plan. If I talked to the consultants and got them to do additional traffic study over the Christmas holiday, and we had a couple public meetings in January, and the new plan was approved in February, and it was submitted for certification, is that going to meet the requirement, or is there, I mean, we've already had 4 public hearings in the city of Grand Forks. There have been 4 public hearings in East Grand Forks. At all 4 of the public hearings in Grand Forks, there's been considerable discussion about the intercity bridge. So it's not like the public, our local public isn't hearing about it, that there's lots of discussion related to it. So if we take those steps in January and submit in February, is that reasonable? Or are you expecting that this should take us 6 to 9 months? We're starting the process over, apparently.
President Sandy, I think it would be a holistic look at the plan, but that could be done quickly. So you have to look at the plan as it sits today and to determine, okay, here's where the bridge came into play throughout the planning process. And what would that mean if we removed it from this section, removed it from that section, removed it from the modeling? There would have to be an audit of the plan first to determine what was all needed locally. I think the other issue that we're kind of sidestepping here is the budget to have the consultant actually do this. The MPO would have to work through a budgeting process with the department to request additional funding to do this work, which in of itself can take a couple months to accomplish. Unless there was a desire to fund something completely locally. Still, there would be a process to amend that scope and get that scope approved by the department, even with local funds. But 6 to 9 months is used, I would say, is a general conservative estimate of what it would take to get through the whole process through a reasonable time. There may be options to fast track that and put a higher emphasis on it and get it done sooner. I don't dispute that at all. 6 to 9 months is shooting high in order to make sure that it's going through a full process. But I would agree with you. There may be optimizations to make it happen sooner. Whether that can be done by the dates you mentioned, possibly.
Okay. Thank you very much again, Mr. Johnson. So
Dana, did you just include 7 ifs and a reference to an act of God?
Yeah,
There.
pretty much, yeah.
In your plan? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. I'm going to make the same motion that I made 2 weeks ago. And I'll leave it to our council members on, if it passes, I'll leave it to our council members on the MPO to do what they believe is right. And I'm not going to have any hard feelings out of this because I think we all try to represent the city as best we can. And so if it passes tonight with the removal of the intercity bridge and that isn't what ultimately goes through the MPO, I know that there'll probably be lots of reasons for however that weighs out. I do believe that it is really unfair. It is unfair that the city of Grand Forks gets equal voice in the long-range transportation planning for the city of Grand Forks. That is not fair. And of course, I would make the recommendation to our members on the MPO committee that they should move to change the makeup of the MPO. But even if both of you do and you get 2 more people on your side, I find it highly unlikely that it would pass. And so I'll continue, which is another reason why I believe it is incredibly unfair, the makeup of the MPO. So I will make the motion that we approve the 2050 long-range transportation plan without any mention of the intercity bridge.
Thank you, President Sam. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? We have a second from Ms. Osowski. Further comment on that motion? Mr. Cavani, please.
Just one quick question. So if we approved the plan with the note that we want to amend it in the future and we pass a resolution as a council that there's no support for any current proposed intercity bridge, does that achieve the same goal that President Sandy's looking towards if we know that this is going to take 6 months, but then we don't, are we leaving the tap open for federal funds with that notion? And I guess that's for the DOT or whoever.
I think what you're saying is if we approve the plan as is with a resolution saying that we don't support a bridge and attaching it, that was a conversation. The question, I think, would probably first be to President Sandy if that
Sure.
solves, or is that acceptable to
Noting
counter his?
that we would
motion?
want to amend the data and knowing that would cost the city money.
I could potentially withdraw my motion as long as Ms. Osowski withdraws her second, but just a general question for the order of the group here. So what happens if if Mr. Veen and Ms. Lunsky say that I need to follow along because I'm representing the city council and you get someone from Grand Forks County and Mr. Grasser vote to remove the bridge, and let's start the process. And all four in East Grand Forks vote to keep the bridge, and it's 4-4. But we know collectively that the MPO Executive Committee has to approve a plan. We have to approve a plan. What happens? I envision the MPO rolling up their sleeves and working hard to come up with a compromise that works for both communities. I don't know what that is, but like, because otherwise I don't think the 8 of you are going to get up from the table. You're not going to throw food at each other and walk out the door. You're going to say, okay, well, if that's not going to work, if removing the plan, for example, the bridge doesn't work, what can we do to come up with a compromise that our constituents are going to be happy with? That's what I foresee happening, right? I don't know how Mr. Veen and how Ms. Lonsky, I don't know how they're going to vote. I can guess how they're going to vote, but I don't know for sure how they're going to vote. And so if it ends up 4-4, I would expect that they would compromise and probably come up with a compromise that the DOT would find acceptable.
Mr. Mayor, I believe we've heard the answer to this question already, that if we hold up the plan, we run the risk of freezing the tip. And even if we are able, with 7 ifs and a reference to God, come up with a way to create a plan that doesn't include any mention of the bridge, the result would be that the state and feds have to look askance at this and wonder how a 5-year process was reversed in such a way in such a short period of time. That is not the bureaucratic process that leads to a transportation improvement plan.
But that's not what I said. I said that they would work to come up with a compromise. What I said was, it doesn't work to remove the bridge because the vote is tied 4-4. So then what's next? They work on a compromise that I would guess, in talking with DOT and others, that perhaps would work for, well, at least would make them comfortable.
Right, but the compromise can't be something that is just decided in that way. There is a long bureaucratic process that leads to these plans. The public meetings require necessary notice, and there's input windows after the meetings, and it's a long bureaucratic process. It isn't a simple matter of a vote on a policy. It is a bureaucratic process.
Yeah, I think that's the frustrating part, is that this process started months, a year ago, and that the bridge was included in there, and it felt like, I know we've talked that different staff was involved, and it seems to me that that was being pushed by one side versus the other, and then just got added as a certainty. And I think that's what the struggle is, because obviously this conversation should have been had 12 months ago, saying, we don't want it in there. Now you got 12 months to figure it out, and that vote should have taken place then. It didn't. So that's what we're at today. We've got a motion, we've got a second. Do we want to vote, or is there
Can I
further
make
conversation?
One more comment here.
Mr. Veen.
Mr. Sandy, I think you see a little bit of the dilemma that we're all in here. What adds to that dilemma is our own Planning and Zoning Committee voted to go with the original plan. And so the representative, which is Mr. Grasser, who represents them, if he votes and represents them and their vote, then that's going to be contrary to us if we were to represent this vote should it fail.
Well, I guess the question was that tied to what their belief was, or was that tied because of the dangle of the federal funding? So it's all started this cascade where now federal funding's at risk.
It is.
And that's, to me, troublesome, because now we're getting held with a gun to your head to do something that you don't believe in, because other projects that you've worked years and years on are finally coming forward. We've got $100 million worth of projects. The other side has nothing, essentially. And now we've got the gun to our head to decide to do what they want to do, even though, because we've got $100 million worth of funding. The whole process stinks, quite frankly.
And I'll point out that 5 years ago, Planning and Zoning voted to remove it, yet Al voted to keep it in. So he didn't support what the Planning and Zoning Committee said 5 years ago.
Yeah, was he on it 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't remember that.
All right.
But anyway, I understand what the mayor's saying. It is truly a dilemma. I think the plan is correct and we should do it regardless. But if you don't think it's correct, then you look like your gun is to your head.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Mr. Cavani?
one more question, and this is for maybe Mr. Phelan. So how are the 4 members that represent Grand Forks determined? Is that bylaws? Is that? Thank you.
There's one representative from Planning and Zoning, that's Al Grasser, 2 from City Council, and then a county representative.
So can we, through a motion of the city, dissolve or revoke all nominees that represent Grand Forks? So I guess my question is, can we approve this plan and then in the next step, have everyone that represents Grand Forks removed because there's something that's been missed?
I think you have the power to appoint 3 Grand Forks members, which would be Planning and Zoning ultimately, and the 2 City Council members. County Commission appoints a commissioner on the MPO board.
And does the county provide any funding for the MPO?
They do not.
Okay.
It's just equal share, 10% and 10% from each city.
Can we revoke funding from the MPO? Until the positions are changed? Sorry, I'm just throwing
I
things
think
out there.
Technically, if you make a motion and it's seconded and it wins, we can replace people on the MPO anytime. We could do it tonight.
I feel like we're being forced with federal dollars to do something we don't want to do. So for us to expect different results with the same people at the table, it's not a personal thing, but something has to change. So if we're going to approve it, we've got to make a change if we don't want the same thing to happen again.
Yeah. Ms. Lunsky, please.
I don't know where the gun to the head, we voted on this 18 months ago to do this study. Like, we could have said, no, I don't want this 18 months ago, but we passed it 18 months ago.
I think that study was related to process, and we didn't pass it the first time, if I remember right. The second time it came back, and we were
And
just
my-
looking into the process, not deciding where the bridge was going to be, and it had to include Merrifield and couldn't name a bridge. So, I mean, it had certain caveats to it. But I think had people expected it to be used as a tool at this time, they would have probably voted differently, but they were open to finding out the process.
Again, this is just a plan. This doesn't hold your hands to anything. You can still approve it. The project still come to you before you. So
It's a metaphorical gun, it's not a real one, so you know.
Mayor, I don't know if this would be a compromise, but could you, Dan and I were talking about, could you remove the bridge from the illustrative list, but not from the modeling part of it? It would be, if you did that, it would be a demonstration that Grand Forks, I think what you really are saying is you do not want to fund this bridge. And by removing it from the illustrative list, you would be saying, you don't want to fund this project. You get that it has to be in there for modeling purposes between the 2 cities, whether you believe in the model or not, but at least it would be a declaration that this council does not want that project even in the illustrative list. We're not going to work hard on it. And the beauty of both the Interstate 29 interchange, the 42nd Street underpass, they were all in this illustrative list, and we worked hard and tried to get them done. In this way, I think what you're saying, the proverbial gun to your head is the fact that we're not going to work hard on this or on the bridge. We're not going to fund this into the future. And you feel like a bit of a phony by even having it in an illustrative list. And maybe if you can you remove it from your illustrative list, keep the model as is, and then we don't have this 6 to 9 months issue. It would be a statement, it would be a policy statement from the city council.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a possible avenue, but I think the question still remains is, in the future, why are we modeling for it if it's not going to happen? I mean, you should make the rest of the plan as good as it can be without something that's modeled that isn't going to happen. It just doesn't make any sense. If the appetite isn't there to get it done, we need to make Fourth and Belmont the best we can without that and move forward knowing it's not going to happen, try to make it the best we can. Build a bridge on Merrifield Road, actually get one done, because it hasn't happened in 40 years, and move forward and make everything else the best it can. Otherwise, you keep adding it to a model, and it's giving hope to people that maybe this is going to happen. It's still just enough of a glimmer of hope. But tonight, yeah, I don't know that we have any choice other than to do what you suggested because of where we're at.
that's a lot
Mr.
easier
Mayor?
edit we can do to the document.
So that's possible. All right. Mr. Weber, please.
Yes, again, the concern I have is putting the tens of millions of dollars in federal funding in jeopardy.
Yeah.
However the vote goes tonight, I will pledge to work with President Sandy and others to strive for properly weighted representation on the MPO. I think that's an important issue that we must pursue. But right now, I want to secure the federal funds.
All right, I guess
And I'll call the question.
Yeah, and I guess the question I just would ask you first, President Sandy, did you want to change it so you're just removing it from the illustrative list so it still remains in the rest of it, or do you want to go forward as
Yeah,
is?
that's fine. Let's move on. Thank you, Mayor. I will move approval of the 2050 transportation plan with the removal of the intercity bridge from the a waste of time illustrative list. Thank you.
Okay, if we got a motion and a second, if you could strike the waste of time part, you okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, I think we've beaten this up as much as we possibly can. So we have a motion to approve the plan as is, but removing the mention of the intercity bridge from the illustrative list. Motion and a second is on the floor. I'm going to just go back to a roll call vote on that.
I'll go first. No.
All right, Sandy, no. Osowski?
Well, I'm confused about.
Oh, wait.
You vote any way you want to.
Okay,
I don't know what I'm voting for.
So he-
I thought we were gonna vote it. Okay,
okay, the question is, do you want to approve the plan as is and remove the mention of it from the illustrative list? So why don't we,
Sure,
Yes.
let's start over. And why don't we just, I'm going to go down the line and start with Mr. Weigel.
No.
No. Okay, we do need to approve a plan tonight, just so we're aware. Okay, Ms. Osowski.
No.
Mr.,
Then I'll vote yes.
okay, we'll go this way, I guess. President Sandy votes yes. Ms. Lunsky votes yes. Where'd I got you there?
Yes.
Mr. Kavami votes yes. Mr. Veen? Yes, okay. And Mr. Weber? Your
Yes.
vote doesn't matter, but please tell us what it says. Yes? Okay.
Yes.
It was approved 5-2 to approve the plan as is, with the removal of it from the illustrative list with Weigel and Osowski dissenting. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just add one more thing if we could, and I'll be really quick.
Sure.
I've heard the federal government say a lot of things that they were going to do and have never done it. So to say that they are going to withdraw funding from the city of Grand Forks doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do it. And so I think that's something we keep in mind.
I don't want to play that roulette game either.
I like gambling every now and again.
Okay, thank you. That's it for item 3. We'd move on to item 4, citizen comments as it relates to action items. Do we have any citizen comments related to action items, Ms. Storstad? No. All right, now we're on to action items. I just want to say, I don't know that they need to be pulled, but we do have Mr. Johnson and we do have Mr. Egan here, so I think it's important to point out that they are here. I think we had good conversation, but I don't know if they're items we need to pull. We did want to briefly pull item 5.1 because that is a new item here. And certainly if we do want to pull any other items, council, I'm open to that as well.
5.4.
5.4.
I want to pull 516.
516, okay. Any other items? You might be off the hot seat, Mr. Johnson. Thanks for coming regardless. All right, so we're looking for approval on items 5.2, 5.3, 5.5, 5.6, 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, 5.10, 5.11, 5.12, 5.13, 5.14, 5.15, 5.17, 5.18, 5.19, 5.20, 5.21, 5.22, and 5.23.
I move approval.
Got a motion to approve from Ms. Osowski and a second from Mr. Veen. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries unanimously, so we'd be left with 5.1, 5.4, and 5.16. Ms. Storstad?
5.1, amendment number 2 for construction services, project 8058, city facilities fiber connections.
Ms. Parvey, thank you for being already up there, please.
Good evening, thank you. We had a fiber project that we were working on. It was approved back in 2021. That project did get extended for a number of reasons. It was just a large fiber project. We're asking tonight just to amend the contract for services, for construction services with AE2S. It was an additional $49,000. And so We just had to bring that before you tonight so we could get it cleaned up before the end of the year.
Got a motion to approve, President Sandy, second from Osowski. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
5.4, set precinct map for 2024 elections and approve joint powers agreement with the Grand Forks County.
Thank you, Ms. Osowski.
I'm going to make this real quick. I personally think that voting should be done on one day in person, but I had reached out, and Sherry held to me, well, Sherry did most of it, but one, the county does not keep track of the numbers of the absentee ballots or doesn't mark them in any way on if they were put in the drop box, and I find that very concerning. They also stated that they have video surveillance of that, which I have requested, and I have not even received any type of acknowledgement from the county or anybody saying that they were going to work on providing this video of the drop box from our last election. So I'd like to move approval with the removal of the ballot drop box in the parking ramp until the county can prove that it is secure and safe with video evidence.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Osowski. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Got a second from President Sandy. Any further discussion on that item?
I bet if you contacted the sheriff, he'd be able to provide you with that information. Just as a...
Well, what exactly you want, just verification that the video is being...
Right, and that
kept-
it can be provided to
Can be
people.
provided, so-
Right, because I haven't even received a response, and they're not even keeping track of, what ballots are being dropped off in the ballot drop box, which are being walked in. They don't have postmarks. I think that we need to make sure that our elections are safe and secure.
Mr. Gosted.
You may not get that security film because it may be a security camera, which is exempt, not something that would be available to the general public for security reasons.
So even if I'm on the canvassing board for that last election, I cannot have any type of access to the video footage of the election box that we have.
What I'm telling you is that there are laws that preclude issuance of security footage to the general public because it is, I'm not suggesting that the county wouldn't allow you to come in as a canvassing board member to take a look at it, but your comment was to make it available to the general public, and I don't think that's not something that's something that the county may not permit.
Okay. My motion stands. I motion approval as long as the ballot box is removed.
Okay. Ms. Lundmark, please.
I just wanted to comment. So I did have, when I initially had the conversation with Ms. Nelson, who's the county auditor, she did say that Dropbox is for all county. So I don't know whether we have the ability to make them remove that. They have gotten positive feedback, and their county commission has authorized the use of that box for the county in total, not just the city. And if we don't approve a joint powers agreement with them, we would need to figure out how to hold the election on our own without county assistance.
Mr. Gosted,
so
can we ask them to remove that or no?
It's their Dropbox,
So.
right? And there are other people that'll be voting potentially from Thompson, Northwood, that would drop it off too. You can certainly make the request that they remove it, but
So I guess the question would be, can it be removed for a city-related election, which would be local officials? I mean, I guess the question would come into other park district, school board, but
correct. And so you're
that
not
would be
just.
awkward, yeah.
Correct. The general election isn't just the city election. It's statewide, national, it's not just for the city, unlike the special election that was just conducted, right?
Right. So I think what you're looking,
So how did they get the drop box there then? They just decided to put it there? I mean, And now we can't even see video of it, even though they're stating this. They're not keeping track of what ballots are in there versus however they receive them. I find it to be very open to fraudulent activity if this is what's going on. So
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a better question for them. I don't think we have the answers. I think what you're wanting to make sure is that it's secure. If it's going to be there and they have to have it there, that it's secure, you'd prefer it not there. But if it's
Right.
going to be there, at least know that it's not wrought with
And
fraud.
we have not even received a response from the county, towards my emails, and I've followed up and nothing. And so I guess I will still try to get that video footage or try to do what I can do, but I think that we should ensure that we have secure elections, and I do not think that drop box in a parking ramp is secure. And Sherry, I saw your comment that people enjoy being able to drive up to it. They can drive up and put it at the post office in the mailbox where they don't need to get out of their car. We offer rides to people to go and vote, and I just think it opens our elections up to fraud.
Yeah, I mean, is it more secure than dropping it off at the post office, I guess, if someone's dropping something off there versus the
At least
store
it's
versus here?
postmarked, and there's a date on it. I don't even think that it needs to be like that when it's dropped in a drop box. So they're not even dated. I don't know. How do we even know that they're not going there the next day after and picking up these, because we don't even certify the vote until like 2 weeks later? And so how many of these are being dropped in there even after Election Day?
Well, I know that part, they would, at a certain time that day, they would no longer, they'd take the ballots, so anything after that would not
Well,
be
you hope
accepted.
so, but there's no video to show you.
Well,
so.
I mean, I have to assume that they've been running elections, that they're doing it properly, but, yeah, again, I guess we have a motion, a second on the floor. Can we, what do you have the motion listed as there, Ms. Lundmark, just so we're clear for people?
So what I have, let me just go down here so I get exactly what I typed in there, that you'd move approval of the precinct map for 2024 elections and the joint powers agreement with Grand Forks County, subject to removal of the ballot drop box, or if the county can provide proof that it is secure to you. Is that?
I'd prefer it removed altogether,
Yeah.
but I'll take proof that it is being recorded as they say.
And I can follow up. I do know that from Ms. Nelson, she said that they do check that daily during the outside, and bring all those ballots inside, and then closer to the election, as it gets heavier, they see heavier usage, then they will do it more than once a day.
You don't even know how many ballots they're picking up out of there,
Yeah,
though. They
well-
can't even provide that information.
And I believe that happens because as they get into the bigger, like the presidential election that will be, well, even the primary in June, they have thousands of ballots, and some come from all different directions. It's dropped off in person, it's put in the drop box, it's through mail, and it's not been an easy way to track for them, so that was the
Maybe we should just switch to one-day voting in person. I think that would fix all of our concerns.
I guess the only question I have on that motion, what would be the burden of proof? I guess how do we make sure that the burden of their proving it secure matches our burden of proving it secure?
Yeah, I mean, there's a civil burden of proof beyond a reason, or preponderance of the evidence. There's beyond a reasonable doubt criminal. I don't know what the standard would be. Clear and convincing evidence, that's also a standard that could be utilized. So, I mean, I don't know what the standard would be either.
So we have a motion, a second. We can entertain this motion, vote. If this motion passes, we can move forward. If it's defeated, we can entertain a second motion that pass it as is. That'd be correct?
Correct.
Okay. So why don't we, if anyone has any further comments? All right, we've been doing a lot of these today, but we're going to go the other way this time. So, Mr. Veen, are you a yes or no on that listed motion? I'm not going to try to. There's a no, Mr. Veen. Mr. Kavami, are you on?
Yes, that my vote is a no.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lunsky? No. Mr. President Sandy?
No.
Mr. Weber?
Gone.
He's gone. Okay, Ms. Osowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weigel?
No.
All right. That motion is defeated. 5-1.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of staff recommendation.
Okay, got a motion to approve as is. Do we have a second? Second from Ms. Osowski. I'm going to give you that one. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. All right, we'd be on to 516, be our last action item, Ms. Storstad.
516, Epidemy Energy Project Development Agreement and associated exhibits.
All right, Mr. Veen, did you have something, please?
Yeah, and I will keep it rather short. I just wanted to, this is a major issue for the community to pass this development agreement. I had some skepticism wanting to drill down, get some more information. Talked to Mr. Phelan, who organized some meetings with Mr. Gosted, Ms. Storstad, Mr. Brooks, Mr. Danielson. I think I got excellent response from them, understanding a little bit more of the risks that we're putting ourselves at, especially the financial and the ability to adjust if we need to in the future. So I just wanted to recognize, again, the importance of this. I think the feedback that I got and the support I have for this agreement.
All right, do we have a motion approved from President Sandy, second from Ms. Lunsky. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for being here, Mr. Egan. All right, moving on to 6, information items.
6.1, Investment Portfolio Summary as of November 30th.
Thank you.
And 6.2, Human Resource 2024 Salary Plan Addendum.
All right, thank you. And item 7, approval of minutes and bills.
7.1, Vendor List as is presented.
Got a motion to approve from Ms. Osowski and a second from Mr. Veen. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
And 7.2 is your minutes from August 7th.
Thank you. Got a motion as is from Ms. Osowski and a second from Ms. Lunsky. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. All right, we're moving on to 8, citizen comments. I know, James Brown, I think you have a medication deadline at 8, so we're going to let you go first. I believe he's in there. And then we had a chair. I know he was, if you could pull that chair up so he's got something to at least hold on to or lean into there. Yeah.
Thought we were talking about the Golden Gate Bridge. You guys all have this piece of paper in front of you guys. Accessible parking, excuse me, for people with disabilities. Why is the city pushing snow into accessible parking? Why aren't sidewalks plowed for people who use wheelchairs, walkers, or have limited mobility? For anyone that matters, yes, they brought up 311. I don't think that's it is a responsibility of the citizens, but I think the city has a big take on it. Accessibility is for everyone. It is for people trying to get to work, pay taxes, and pay their bills. I personally have experienced this issue, and many of my peers have reported this also. Thanks for listening, and more importantly, thanks for acting on that situation. Myself, Vice President of Self-Advocacy Solution, North Dakota. On a positive note, 10 days ago, I've been talking with Brandon. 10 days ago, the governor of North Dakota made a proclamation declaring Disability Inclusion Week, December 4th through the 8th. I'm still in talks. Hopefully, Brandon, we can get something done for the city. SAS North Dakota initiated the event. As Vice President, I initiated conversation and event. It is time that everyone in our state and town realize that the importance of inclusion of all people. We would like the fair folks of Grand Forks to also celebrate the direction we are moving in. Being side by side with everyone else, that is where we belong and where we stay. Thank you again. That's for that part. And then Sandy left, but I would like to talk to you about sidewalks, because I've been informed that you get things with the sidewalk stuff done. And when the snow is done, please, please, please work on those sidewalks. Get those sidewalks fixed. The sign deal, I was just in Vegas, and I think it was Sandy that brought up that he doesn't want our town looking like Vegas. And I want one of you guys to look into those signs to see if they affect seizures. I was in Vegas, I was sitting in Giada's, and one of the signs was it was about the size of the sign, the bridge, going over the bridge. It's about that size. And it turned red, and it set off a seizure. I had a seizure in Vegas. Set off a seizure. Could that be anybody going over the overpass? And then you have somebody running off the side of the bridge, killing somebody because of that certain sign? Those signs are bright. I don't know if you guys realize it. Those signs are bright. And I don't know if they're medically cleared, but I think they should be looked into. They're beautiful and all in the daytime, but at night they get bright. Any questions?
Well, thank you for coming in today.
Yeah,
Thank you for
thank
sitting
you.
through that long meeting. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I was patient. It was this one.
You better stop there if you know any better.
Yeah, thank you.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Good to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Good to see you. I don't know if I met you.
I'm Danny.
My name is Kim.
Nice to meet you, Kim.
I know this guy though. He's a mayor, so.
I agree.
I got a picture taken with him a long time ago when they broke down the Vanessa Center,
Yeah, the groundbreaking, right?
right?
Yeah.
I got my picture taken with you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other comments this evening?
Yes, we have one more. Dennis Denault.
Mr. Denault, please.
Thanks for letting me speak tonight. I'll bypass a couple issues here. First of all, what's the city policy on drug testing? Some of the so-called, quote, operators on our city equipment. How often do they get drug tested? Is there random, annual?
I'm not sure how often. I know they do. Maybe Mr. Phelan
We
knows.
do post-accident, random, and there's also pre-employment.
That's it?
Yep. Those are the 3 areas you can be tested.
A couple weeks ago, I remember Sharon talking about a couple $100,000 for another payloader. I wish we get some operators that can put this equipment to work. The other day, we got a little bit of snow. It wasn't much. But the so-called payloader operator, I got a picture of it too. We're sitting here with over $200,000 in equipment. And he dumped a little bucket, wasn't much, about the size of 2 wheelbarrows. That's about an eighth to maybe a quarter of a bucket of a cubic yard. And these payloaders that the city's buying or leasing, they're about approximately a minimum of 3 to 4 cubic yard buckets, so they can handle a lot of snow. And just like, I believe, the one out in the dump ground, That's a John Deere 744, and that's $400,000, and that's got a 6 cubic yard bucket. But the other day, this so-called operator, he dumped a little bit of snow right on the edge of my driveway instead of taking a nice clean slice and shoving the snow down about 50 to 100 feet, where it isn't going to interfere with all the snow removal, future snow removal, if we get some more snow. And he could have easily dumped the snow down there. You can tell the difference between the old operators, the good operators that are retired, and what we got now. And it just amazes me, some of the personnel that the city hires in regards to all the years I worked construction. So anyway, I'm going to save a little seed here for the next meeting a couple of weeks from now, but I can't believe all the whiners in this town about this little bit of traffic. They got to drive 2 miles and they got to be there in 2 minutes. I worked all over the United States, mainly the cities, north of Chicago and Milwaukee, a lot of major cities down south. And I didn't have any problem getting around. And if there was an issue, we would start an hour early in the mornings so we could kind of beat the traffic. But after working around the whole United States, I just can't believe it. All the way they drive. And like Mr. Sandy was speaking about 4th in Minnesota, and I brought this up to the cops and coffee with the cop at the senior center back in March, April. And as far as I'm concerned, a lot of senior citizens believe the same way. Nothing much has been done about trying to maintain the speed. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the cops can get a lot of speeders. Because at 10 o'clock in the morning, I just about got T-boned by one of these high rollers with Minnesota tags driving a full-size Suburban or a GMC Envoy. And she blew right through the red light. She was doing at least a minimum of 35 to 40 miles an hour. Luckily, I'm driving an old truck. It's just a two-wheeler, and I didn't get a very good start. And she come flying through, and I just about got a good sucker punch, and I would have ended up in the hospital. So I wish the PD would, if they got time, to kind of pay a little attention on that busy intersection there with all the senior citizens. So, and anyway, we still got to do something about all that illegal snow dumping.
All right, Mr. Denault, that's 5 minutes. So thank you for coming this evening and sticking around to the end.
2 weeks. See you again.
Sounds good, thank you. Any other comments this evening, Ms. Lundmark? Nope. All right, Mr. Phelan, I hope your comments are of reasonable length this evening.
They're always reasonable, but I have none tonight.
Okay, thank you. On to item 10, Mayor and Council member comments. Mr. Weigel, any comments this evening?
Just Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all our city staff and everybody in the room.
Thank you, Mr. Weigel. Ms. Wasowski?
I guess I really never even thought about the signs, the digital billboards affecting people with epilepsy. And epilepsy is something that I guess I think that people need to be educated on that very much so. And so I would like to see the billboards looked into to make sure that, you know, they're not going to cause people to have seizures. I haven't seen anything on the billboards that would have caused, you know, that I would assume would cause seizures. But, and also just Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
All right, let's see here. Let's move on. Ms. Lunsky, any comments? Mr. Kavami, any comments this evening?
Just a quick, thank you and Merry Christmas to all the staff. And then another special thank you to Mr. Gosted for that great solution today. Thank you.
We'll see if you want credit for it later. But Mr. Veen, any comments this evening?
No, the same. I mean, I wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and thanks for all the work everybody does.
Thank you. And then just my final comments, pretty much want to mirror the same. I want to thank the council. I mean, these are some spirited discussions. These feel light over some of the discussions we've had over the time, but just want to thank everybody for their work and all the people left in here. We've had it's been a long year, it's been a long couple of years, but people keep showing up and doing work and doing good work for the benefit of the city of Grand Forks. So thank you to all, and just on behalf of the community, and want to tell everyone out there, have a Merry Christmas, stay safe, enjoy time with friends and family, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. So thank you. Signing off for 2023. Got a motion to adjourn from Mr. Osowski, second from Mr. Weigel. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.